Hey, Strength of Seduction family, this is Daniel, and if you're listening to this episode, well, there's a good chance that you're already a Strength of Seduction customer. The reality is most people purchased our Strength of Seduction workouts back during the pandemic because they were really fun to do in the house and they looked exciting, and you wanted to build intimacy with your partner. You wanted to build connection with your partner. But over the past few years, we've realized that just doing the workouts is really fun, it's engaging, and it's interesting, but it's not really what we were trying to get at with our programming. What we intended to do is to create something that would help you to transform your life and your marriage. And it's taken us a few years to figure out what exactly that means. And we didn't do it alone. We did it by talking to you. Over the past few years, we've talked to over 20,000 couples, Black couples in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s, who've gone through it all, who've seen the ups and downs of life, who've gone through all the struggles, who've actually achieved happiness. And what we learned was really shocking. We learned that there are 4 key elements that all relationships must have strong. They must have on lock in order to make that relationship thrive. And we took those 4 elements and we designed a program around those elements to help support Black couples in a way that's, well, we've just never seen done before. And what we came up with was called Love and Legacy. And it's the first and only program in the world created from speaking privately with thousands of couples just like us about the biggest challenges in our life and relationship. And it's actually a proven system designed to help Black couples upgrade our life and our marriage. Now, this is not open to the public yet. If you're listening to this, like I said, you're most likely already a member of our community. And that's why we'd like to tell you about it first. You can apply and you can learn more at strengthofseduction.com/legacy. This is a private page. And I look forward to hearing from you because the reality is there isn't a lot of talk about what makes our marriages work, what makes our marriages thrive. What I've seen when I'm doing my research is that there's still a big stereotype that our marriages don't last, they don't work, that they're non-existent. And that's certainly not the case. In the Love and Legacy community, we have members who've been married for 20, 30, 40 years, and they're still going strong. And yet they're still interested in learning more and digging deeper and showing up better as partners and individuals. So if that's you, go ahead and check us out, strengthofseduction.com/legacy to learn more about this new program that we're launching. And enjoy today's episode. This is the Strength of Seduction podcast, the #1 resource for Black couples who want to build intimacy, love, and connection in their relationship. I'm your host, Daniel DiPiazza. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Strength of Seduction podcast, the #1 podcast for Black couples who want to build love, intimacy, and health into their marriage. I'm your host, Daniel DiPiazza. Thank you so much for being here. Now, if you're new to the podcast and you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? Make sure you subscribe on whatever platform you love listening to this on: Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube. Make sure you also leave a review, a 5-star review. We'd love you so much, and it helps us to bring awareness to the show, guys. There's no other way that people find out about the show except for you leaving a comment, leaving a review on whatever platform you're listening to this on, and giving that good old podcast a subscribe. So we appreciate you. We love you. Now, we're going to get to the show today. Today's a very exciting episode. It's all about the anatomy of effective communication, and it's featuring 2 of our Strength of Seduction certified coaches, our expert coaches, Renita and Roosevelt Quick, who've been married for, almost going on 4 decades now, and they've learned so much through their marriage and through working with hundreds of other couples that they have brought it back to our Love and Legacy private program members to share some of their wisdom, specifically on the anatomy of communication today. And I'm just giving you guys a sneak peek on the podcast behind the scenes of what one of those sessions is like. Just for anyone who's listening, what we do on these podcasts where we share what our coaches are saying, we also will take out the responses that our students will say as well, our members will say, so that everyone's information is protected and privacy is protected in that space. But we will share with you the gems that our teachers are dropping. So you're going to love to listen to that. Now, if you are listening to this right now and you've been married for at least a decade, most likely 2 if you're in your 50s or 60s, you'll find that you probably still really love your partner, but there's an opportunity that you're looking for potentially to spice things up, to improve what is already good, or to heal what's been needing some healing for a while. And that's why we're hosting a new free event that's coming up here on April 11th at 8 p.m. EST. It's called Reignite and Reconnect. It's the way to find a thriving marriage all the way into your 50s. And this is a free event. And if you go to strengthofseduction.com/webinar, you can sign up for it today. And this is specifically for our couples who've been together for a few decades, who have, I guess you could say, run the race and gotten the t-shirt to prove it. We're going to share proven practices for deepening the intimacy, health, and connection in your marriage after the kids are all growing up. And this is great for, Black married couples in their 50s who survived all those challenging times together, who are empty nesters, who've been together 10, 20 years, and they want to now invest in their life and in their marriage, and they want some experience guidance. What we're going to do with this is we're going to keep it a little bit tighter on this presentation. We've put together some really incredible group events over the last few months, and they've been well attended. We really appreciate everyone coming out. We had one with almost 400 people on it, and we really appreciate it. Now, this one's going to be a little bit tighter, a little bit smaller. We're looking for just 25 couples who want to learn from our expert coaches what it really takes to continually leveling up, even when you're many decades into the marriage. We're looking forward to supporting you there. You can go to strengthofseduction.com/webinar to sign up for that. There will also be a link to that in the show notes or wherever you're listening to this or watching this on. And now let's get into today's episode, where you'll be learning from our expert coaches, Roosevelt and Renita Quick.
Okay, we've got a lot of new people,
which is wonderful.
Yes, a lot of new couples. So let's just do a quick intro.
We are, for those who don't know us yet, Roosevelt and Renita Quick. We reside in Atlanta, Georgia, and we've been married for 33 years. And we are actually college sweethearts. We got married right out of Purdue University. And an interesting fact about us is we actually met my freshman year in college, and her boyfriend at the time introduced us. And he graduated early. He was older. So his loss, my gain. And 37 years later, here we are, 38 years.
It's not that long, about 35 years later. Yeah, 35 years. Yeah. So he was older and I'm older. So that's the other fun fact, is that I am Roosevelt's elder, so by 3 years. So from time to time, it's wise for him to obey his elders.
And how many children we have?
We have three sons. Adult sons.
Sons. We will talk on communication as it relates to relationships, helping our relationships to flourish. And so we're going to get right into it, and realizing that we are going to try to conclude right at 8 o'clock. If we don't get through everything tonight, because this really is designed to go about an hour, 15 minutes. So if we want to make sure that we are able to serve you. And then also, like I said, for this evening, we'll conclude and then come back at 8 o'clock for the group that may come at 8 o'clock. All right. So we will see where we go. I'm going to share my screen. And specifically, we're going to take a look at the topic, which is the anatomy of communication. We're going to talk about the anatomy of couple communication, understanding the basics of communication. Communication, we have to understand that there is actually an anatomy to communication. But before we look at that, let's define what is communication. Can I get some definitions from people to say, what is communication when you think about communication?
How would you define it?
How would you define
it?
What we're actually looking at is, it's not just sharing information. It's communication is the act of sharing or exchanging information. We all got that with someone so that it results in understanding. And that is the part, I think, a lot of times we think that we may get caught up in the words, as in that being important, but really, it really is understanding, being able to communicate with understanding and achieve understanding. Yep. When we talk about the components of communication, first thing we have to keep in mind is we have a speaker and then we have a listener. That speaker has thoughts. And then when those thoughts are shared, it creates a message. I take my thoughts, I create a message, and then it is actually received by the listener, and then they process it and gain understanding. So we've got the speaker, listener, thoughts, message, understanding. And then once someone has received and processed that message, the listener comes up with a thought, and then they have to respond with giving their own message. And then finally, the speaker assesses their understanding. Now, when you think about all the different components here, the thing that we have to keep in mind is there's a possibility that my thoughts may not always get to the listener because the message could get garbled. There could be a breakdown in understanding. And then if there's a breakdown in the message or understanding, it creates difficulty on the listener side to be able to interpret that as well. We've also got to think about emotions and filters and things of that nature. So those are all the different components of communication.
So let's talk about the process of communication. Because again, we just talked about there is a speaker. And so that's the person that is conveying whatever information it is that they thought, their message, they're conveying that. Then you've got the listener, who is the person that's receiving that information and translating that from their perspective or what they think they heard, what they interpreted. And then the message is whatever the information is that that person is sharing. The process is the mental steps that we follow in order for us to understand the information. And like Roosevelt said, sometimes there's filters. There's maybe a skewed perception or a preconceived conception of what you're saying. There may be that I am not even really listening because I want to fire back, or I have a rebuttal, or I have my own opinion that I want you to hear. All of those things excuse me, can hinder the process of communication and slow that down. So here's a couple of things we also want to point out. The methods of communication, and I think somebody was mentioning it earlier. Keith, I think Keith was mentioning that. But when we think about communication, it comes in these three different methods or ways that we can communicate. We can communicate verbally, which obviously what we're speaking. We can also communicate non-verbally. So there's things that our body posture is in a certain way. There's expressions that are on our face that transmit information. And then lastly, it can be written. And the written form of communication comes in clearly what we write on a piece of paper, what we write in a text, what we write in an email. And so all of those things become methods by which information is shared, the thought, the message, and then the process of understanding. Here's a question for you. When we're communicating, when we're transferring information, it comes in words, there's a tone that's to my voice, and then there's the nonverbal component of it. When you think about transmitting information, what percentage do you think constitutes the words that we say? So to get the message across, what percentage of that is really the words? What percentage of that is the tone? And what percentage of that is the nonverbal? And so just shout out words. How much do you think that the message is reliant upon the words?
50%.
50?
50%.
Okay. So I'm hearing a lot of 50s. Okay.
30.
Okay, 30. Okay, what about the tone? The tone of voice. It could be your cadence. It could be how quickly you're saying something. It could be how loud you're saying something, how low you're saying something. What about the tone? How much does that play into getting the message across?
Probably 70.
20.
Okay, 70. Ooh, that's high. But again, that's the expression on your face. That's how your body is presented. You know, that sometimes when we're talking, our arms are crossed, or sometimes people are walking and moving. What does the nonverbal say, and how does that translate into the message?
Not looking someone in the eye.
Yeah, not looking in the eye. So I'm going to just use somebody, for example. I'm going to use Kim because I think I can pick with her and be okay. So Kim, is that a green shirt you have on?
Wait.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So Kim's got on a green shirt. What if I said, you know what, Kim? That's a real nice shirt you have on. I think you look real nice in green. You should wear green all the time. It really makes your eyes sparkle. What message did Kim just get?
All of these compliments.
All of the compliments, all of
But
the
that it
nice
was
words.
very monotone. There was nothing exciting about what you said.
I wouldn't
Yep.
believe it. I don't believe it.
Okay.
I
Good.
don't believe. I don't believe
Good.
nothing you said.
I believe nothing you said.
All that. Look, I'm looking
Okay.
at your face like you look. Yeah, you look good. You look happy. Nah, you didn't mean nothing you said. Is what I'm-
Yeah. Excellent. That's the whole point. I was saying all the right words, and Valerie picked up, it was super monotone. And then Reggie picked up, your face told the whole story. You didn't mean that. You are not sincere about that. You just saying some words because you want to say something nice. And I don't even know, with your tone and with your body language, I don't even know if you wanted to say something nice. What is so key about that is to understand, again, so many times we're trying to get the words out. I just want you to hear what I got to say. And I'm saying it fast, I'm saying it loud, I'm saying it however, but the majority of your conversation, the majority of the message, 93% of the message is coming from your tone and it's coming from your body language. I always use this example. I'm from the generation where, and some of you could agree with this, when the street lights went out, when the street lights came on, what, Keith?
You went in the house.
You better be home. Better be home. Not
So
out on the way.
my mother didn't have to tell me that every night. She didn't have to repeat it. But when those street lights came on, we were of the generation. We played tag and all hide and seek and all that kind of stuff. But when the street lights came on, you better have your behind at home.
Yeah.
On the days when I forgot that and the street lights came on, and it may have been 5 minutes. I'm trying to get home, but I done got too far away. I live in Indianapolis, and across the street from us was something called Fall Creek, but we just be playing all over the neighborhood and everything. But if I came down the street 5 minutes late and saw my mother standing in the doorway with her hands on her hips, she never said a word, but I knew I was in trouble. Then if she said, Renita Louise Beverly, I really knew I was in trouble because she said all three of my names. And the tone of her voice, it never was like, you're in trouble, get in here, whatever. I just knew from those three words, hands on the hips, the tone of her voice, that I was in trouble. And the thing about communication is that we have to remember that a large percent of the message is not in our words, but in our tone, in our nonverbal expression. And people are picking up what you're really meaning and what you're really conveying. And so that's really crucial.
Absolutely. So we're going to get into one of the other components of communication, and that is looking at the fact that what is it that has an impact on communication. We're thinking about the phases of communication in life. And we have to understand that your style of communication is shaped by events in three phases of your life. There are things that have happened to you before the two of you got together. So that is your history. So you have to understand that there are things that affect the way I communicate because there are things that have happened before we got together. There's a history, there's my history. And then there is things that occur within you that is in your life. There's things that are that you're processing internal today, things that, again, were impacted by your experience, things that have happened to me today, the way that I'm dealing with things in my life. And then there's also things that have happened between us that affects the way we communicate. So things that affect our history, our current life, and then the relationship between us right now. So let's look at how this breaks down. history, the events that happened in your life before your relationship. What was the communication like in the family that you grew up in? You understand that we've known couples that may have come from different family backgrounds. One person grew up as an only child, and they were very listened to, and communication was all about them. And so they never had to argue, they never had to debate, it was just them. Then we had the other spouse may have come from a very large family, and we were coaching a couple, and they were very high strung. And so the way that they communicated is they just cut each other off. They talked over one another. They shouted. They had to be loud if they felt like, I can't get my point across if I'm not shouting, if I'm not loud. And so again, that is understanding that affects your communication style, how things happen before you. Now, how do things happen before us affects your communication style? So let's move on to the next.
So within you and within your life, these are the events that shape the way that you view life. This is my world view, if you will. So inside, I process things, I come up with my perspective about things. And so it's about how I see life. And so I communicate many times from that place. So what are the beliefs that shape the way that I communicate with people? What are my values? What are my core values? What is it that I live by and stand on? Because this now informs the way that I communicate. So what happened within me, again, it's going to affect the way that I'm relating to other people, the way that I just process through and think about things that are happening in life, and then how I project that or send that message out.
All right. And then between us, events that affect your life together. What events affect the way you communicate with your, think about the significant events, and what I've always found is you actually learn more about your partner when you actually experience things together, specifically if you experience good and bad. But I found that I learned more about Renita when we've gone through difficult times. I don't know if we share this with this group, but we had medical difficulties with each of the births of our children. And I remember that first devastating news that we got when we thought we had a miscarriage, when Renita had miscarried. And she was just devastated by that. We both were devastated by that. But I learned about resiliency, and it's a long story. We'll go through it sometime. But I learned that she had so much resiliency by going through that very difficult time. I knew that she was a fighter. I knew that she was tough, based on how she actually progressed through that situation and actually learned more about one another at that time. Mm-hmm. So the thing that we want to think about as we think about all of this is these are all areas that we want to make sure that we're communicating about, understanding why we communicate the way we do, understanding our history, being able to share our history, being able to share what's going on, being able to open up and to be vulnerable. That we're going to talk about different types of intimacy that will help us to learn these different aspects of how our communication has been shaped by different events in different phases of our lives.
So we're going to go past that.
Yeah.
So the last time that we did this, we talked about the movie Guess Who? I don't know if anybody remember that movie with Bernie Mac. It's pretty old, where Ashton Kutcher engaged to his daughter. So Ashton Kutcher is white and his daughter is black, and of course Bernie Mac is black. And so it was all the issues that they were experiencing as a dating interracial couple, and coming to visit that weekend that Bernie Mac and his wife were about to renew their vows. But it's just all the different things that were a part of her introducing him for the first time. And we learned a lot of lessons about communication style when we watched that movie. And so the last part of what we want to do in just the anatomy of communication is talk about communication styles, because clearly my style of communication and his style of communication affects the way that we relate to one another, and that's the case for anybody that we're in a relationship with. So we want to identify what our style is, and so we ask these two questions. How willing are you to share your thoughts and feelings when you talk to other people? Are you somebody that's very open to communicate, or are you more closed off? And so that openness, I'm not putting myself out there, I'm a little bit more guarded when you communicate with people. So is it, I don't have any problem. I like to talk. I like to share. I like to just be out there and it's not a problem for me, or I just hold back. The second question, because at the top you're high openness, at the lower end you're low openness. How much do you care about the needs and feelings of other people? Because that shapes the way that you express yourself. So if you don't really, I don't care about how other people think when I speak or what have you, then you're more on that left side. If you are, I'm very much wanting people to feel comfortable. I am politically correct. I do not say things that will be offensive. I don't engage in offensive conversations. Then you're more highly considerate of other people. So now when we look at these quadrants, if you're someone that is very open to communicate, but you really are not that concerned about how people receive it, then your communication style is more aggressive. If you're low on considering other people and you're very more closed off, then there may be more of that passive aggressive style. Low in openness, but high in how I want people to feel. And I'm very considerate of that, may be more passive because I'm going to be more low key. And instead of me expressing myself, I won't put myself out there. I don't want others to feel bad or what have you. High openness to communication, but very considerate of others as more of that assertive style. And where we're trying to get to, no matter what naturally I would lean toward, we're all trying to get to a point where we can communicate assertively, but in a way that does not offend other people.
The key in understanding is that each of us has strengths in we talked about when we talk about personality styles, but each of those styles have strengths and weaknesses. And when I am taking a strength that I may be very good at communicating with people, but if I push it to the extreme, then it can become a weakness, because then I go from being very, let's say, assertive to I can become bossy and dictatorial, and I can start to actually changing people, trying to change people or control people's behavior with my communication, and it becomes manipulative. But again, it all depends on whether I'm living in that strength and I have things under control, or if I'm out of balance. So that's the thing that we have to remember is, the thing that we're trying to accomplish is we're trying to achieve understanding with communication. And to your point, Keith, what you said before is what happens a lot of times is when someone says something, we have to also be aware that it creates thoughts or ideas in that other person as well. What we communicated, what we actually said, it may not be actually the message that we intended, may not be processed the way we intended it to be processed. So all of those things, again, is why we want to be aware of communication style. We want to be aware of the way it's being received as well. We're just going to talk about the aggressive communication style. Again, we're in the form of Bernie Mac. Percy was his name in the movie, but very loud, tends to be driven by anger and judgment, can be inflexible, disrespect others' boundaries, constantly blames, criticizes, acts domineering. And you know what? It's all in the name. Usually I'm going to use an aggressive communication style all in the name of I'm trying to be helpful. I'm trying to do what's better for you. And that's usually the way that aggressive communication style, when it is out of balance, the way it can come across.
But I think the thing that's important to know is, remember, if you are the speaker and your style leans more toward aggressiveness, you've got to consider, am I really communicating the message that I want? Because louder is not always better. Dominating is not always getting across, especially when you come into contact with a person that is passive aggressive, because they're going to take a quieter tone, but they've dug their heels in and decided, I really don't care what you're saying. I don't care how loud it is. I don't care how demonstrative you are. I've already decided no. And so am I trying to, we had a pastor that he used to say, do you want to be right or do you want to be righteous? You can be right all day, but at the end of the day, am I sacrificing my relationship because I want to be right? The next one, I didn't mean to stop sharing. Help me. Hold on for a second. Hit the wrong button. I was trying to hide the thing. There we go. Okay. So do we want to, in passive aggressiveness, these are the things that we're seeing, the acting out indirectly. And so it's almost like a camouflage, or somebody said it earlier, like the joke that's a dig. It's when you're trying to camouflage it. It's not that bad, but you really meant what you said. Undermining others. There's a place of resentment that it comes from. Avoiding directly communicating what you're feeling and what you're thinking. It's that inauthentic kind of presentation. I'm not really being authentic. I'm putting on an air, that type of thing. And a lot of that is because I've already decided what I am and I'm not going to do. And so again, how is the message being translated, and are you accomplishing what you want? The end result of sharing information is that the receiver is understanding what I'm giving them.
Then when we talk about passive communication, experience fear of speaking up, avoids expressing needs and feelings, because there's a sense of there's risk with opening up. There's risk with sharing how I feel. I don't want to be put down, or there's a sense of being threatened. Over apologize, or often feels overwhelmed. So that is the passive communication style. So when we talk about assertive communication, this is a place where we are actually wanting to achieve a level of understanding. I didn't say agreement, but it's a way of respecting one another's feelings, sharing my feelings, having empathy for my partner's feelings or the person that I'm communicating with, creating a safe space where we can have open and honest communication, promotes open and healthy connection with others, expresses yourselves clearly, listens, has empathy with one another. And so that is really the place where we can actually process through, achieve understanding. And it's amazing what happens when we both feel like we've been heard, when we have expressed our desires, what we want, what we're feeling. It's amazing how the communication, the blocks, the hindrances to communication can be let down when I think that you're understanding my perspective.
So when we talk about building blocks and what we're going to be doing over the next several weeks, it's all about how are we building a space where we can speak assertively and listen actively. And so that there is that confidence in the conversation that we're having. How do we collaborate versus compete? That's one of the topics. How do we improve our listening? And so expressing clearly, but listening also actively. So a lot of those things that are a part of assertive communication are what we're going to take kind of week by week and talk about what that looks like and how do we accomplish that.
That is it on the Strength of Seduction podcast for today, my friends. If you enjoyed this sneak peek of a Love and Legacy class, then you'll love what we have coming up for you April 11th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It's called Reignite and Reconnect, Creating a Thriving Marriage After 50. This is a free event for anyone who is in the second decade of their marriage or getting close. For Black married couples who are at least 50 and above, who survived those challenging times together and are still deeply in love, but want to keep that energy fresh and keep things exciting. Empty nesters, my empty nesters out there who are ready and willing to invest in their life and their marriage and want experience, guidance, and accountability to do so. This is also ideal for those who have tried therapy or coaching in the past or counseling in the past, but were left wanting something more practical. So claim your free spot at this live event. We are opening up to 25 couples only. This is not going to be a big event. This is going to be a tight one. So make sure that you're tuning in. You're going to learn a lot of practical skills that you can apply right now. So I will catch you at that free event. Thank you for tuning in to the Strength of Seduction podcast. Until next time, I'm Daniel. I'm out of here. Peace.